In today's video, we're going through 3 great exercises that you can use as part of your rehabilitation process, starting right from the moment that you injure or re-injure your lower back, all the way through to longer term rehabilitation that's going to meet the needs for exactly what you need to do to keep your back in shape for the long term. We're going to break down that first exercise, why it's important, what it's achieving, and how we're doing it. And then the second exercise, safely starting to incorporate strengthening work and control of your core to maintain stabilization in that lumbar spine so that it doesn't get pulled awry and relapses happen again and again. And then finally challenging your body in a mechanism that is, or with a mechanism that is reminiscent of the activities we're going to be doing on a daily basis, upright, with and without load, to really challenge ourselves for the long term and building that proper resilience that helps stopping us having relapses further down the line. So hopefully you're going to find today's video really helpful. Let's get straight into number 1. The very first exercise we're going to be talking about is going to be a towel decompression. Why are we doing a towel decompression exercise first and foremost? We're doing a towel because what it is doing is it's putting that spine back into the right position. We're putting and supporting that natural lordotic curve in the lumbar spine, and we're using a towel to do so. And whilst using that towel, we're also creating a longitudinal stretch, a decompression effect on the discs and the vertebral bodies in general, to take pressure off the area that has likely been wounded. This is going to have the most profound effect at the L4-5 and the L5-S1 segments of the lumbar spine, 2 of the most commonly injured areas. And particularly with reference to the discs in those areas, it's really helpful at putting the whole segments back into the best possible position. This runs counter to the common exercises that you'll typically be doing at this time, which will be things like knee hugs and rounding the back further, compressing those discs and creating more trouble. So in a moment we'll bring it up on the screen so you guys can see exactly how we're doing this exercise. But essentially we are supporting the curve down the bottom section of this lumbar spine. As the spine, or your spine, is lying flat on the floor, there should be the ground contacting here and up here in the rib cage as well, but this bit should have that curve to it. And by popping the towel in the middle here, we are creating both the extension through the lumbar spine, but also because the towel is pushing our spine up gently, it is creating a decompression effect, opening up the spaces at the level of these discs whilst not stressing and straining this section of the spine here at the back by doing excessive rounding and damaging these sections further. So when you're doing this exercise, it's really important that you get into position nice and steadily, nice and slowly, and while you're lying there, just relax. Know that if you've got any sort of long-standing or recurring back pain, whether it's from slip discs, whether there's some degeneration there, some arthritis, some sciatica, whatever it may be, you might well find this rather uncomfortable to begin with, but it is an exercise that will become easier and easier for you to do. It will become more and more relieving and more essential for the long term. And that's mainly due to the fact that when your spine has been in such a bad position, think of the roundedness that comes with that lower back from sitting all day and traveling to and from work. When we start to put it back to its natural normal position, sometimes that's a little bit uncomfortable to start with. So with time, this will get easier. And typically speaking, we would be doing this exercise for around about 3 to 5 minutes. Although some of you might even want to start off this exercise just for 20 to 30 seconds at a time. The final most important thing when we're doing this particular exercise is the dismount. It's all well and good doing a lovely little 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And then if we get off, we twist our back inappropriately, we're going to set ourselves off in a bad way. If we get up inappropriately by just lifting straight up off the towel, we're going to catch ourselves, we're going to do things that are unwise after doing this great exercise. So make sure your dismount is sensible and is just like we show on the video, because that is what helps get results and not undo the good practice of the last 5 minutes, because you don't want to waste your time when you're doing these things. Exercises can sometimes be time consuming, although 3 to 5 minutes is not really time consuming, but there's no point wasting your time by going and doing a bunch of bad practices immediately after you've done this great one. So the towel, make it part of your back health and spine hygiene routine from this day forwards. Then we come to number 2. Now, you're out of the woods in terms of you're not stuck in bed unable to move, and in many cases, the overwhelming majority of cases, you can start this exercise pretty much straight after starting the first, and more or less immediately so, because many of you will be able to just do nothing, and most of you with back pain will be moving around the house to some degree or other. Now, don't get me wrong, there's going to be pain there. Things don't heal overnight, and things definitely don't heal overnight if you haven't got the strength. So it's a bit of a catch-22. We have to do some strengthening work, but we're in pain. We have to move through that in a sensible and reflective manner. And actually, having some degree of pain in that lower back is actually a helpful thing in this stage because it also gives us that instant feedback. Let me show you on the spine what I'm talking about. The main way that we catch ourselves, once we've had that first injury or that first relapse, the way we catch ourselves on a daily basis is through movement of the spine. What it is that there's inflammation building up in this area here, and you move in a funny way. It's that movement, that uncontrolled movement at the level of the spine, and you can hear it as I'm doing that. And these joints changing some of the pressure gradients, changing some of the sizes of the holes where these little nerves are coming out, that is what is catching your back and causing you pain. So the only thing we can do to stop that is generate control and stability over this area. And the safest position to possibly do that is going to be off weight bearing, lying down. And that brings us to our second exercise and how we're going to be doing it and why. Remember, at any time, if you want to learn more about the full Back in Shape program, you can always click a link above my head or in the description of this video to learn more and how you can get started with us for a 7-day free trial. So click the link underneath if you're interested and want to learn more about that. Back to the video. So this exercise is the dead bug. Why are we doing it? Because as I just mentioned a moment ago, we want to protect from erroneous movement. It's those funny movements that happen when we twist and go to move something or go to grab something or even breathe or sneeze that cause changes in movement in this section here, and those are what give us pain and give us re-aggravation. So we want to be lying down in this particular exercise, and again you're going to see it on screen in a moment, so bear with me. We want to be lying down and then engage our core. Note, I didn't talk about moving the spine whatsoever. We do not move our spine when we're doing these. Too many of you will have done things like pelvic tucks where we flatten the lumbar spine. That is incorrect, and that is a problem, and it's a bad practice because it does not apply well to being stood upright. Notice, everything we're talking about here are things and principles that are applying to the way in which your spine should be functioning effectively in daily life. So we have a nice neutral spine maintained here, and then what we're going to simply do is lift up the legs one at a time and then engage them by moving them out one at a time only, as far as is reasonable. Now sometimes when you start this, even that action of just bringing the legs up creates unevenness, creates wobbling in this section of the pelvis, and that will give you aggravation. And that's a cue that you're not properly engaging your core, because if you engage your core properly and hold this area steady, the little movement of you bringing your leg up to get it into the starting position won't be enough to pull on your pelvis, and you can see what that's doing to the joint down the bottom here. You're doing it wrong if you're getting pain doing this, so we need to practice. And understandably, this is just like a child who's learning to walk. You're going to fall over a couple of times. You're not going to get it right a couple of times. If you did get it perfect and had no pain, you probably don't need to be starting here. You should be much further on. You probably arguably wouldn't have the problem in the first place. But many of you will struggle, and that's okay. You're learning that this is an area that you need to work at, and this is the safest possible place to do it. So if we can't do it here, where on earth are we going to be doing it? And that's a serious question to think about that. So, moving on. We're lying in this position, engaging our core nice and tight, and moving the legs. Let's show you on the full video. So guys, as you can see here in the video, we are engaging the core first and foremost, making sure that's nice and tight. That core set of muscles is there to engage and stabilize that lumbar spine, as I mentioned a moment ago. Then we bring the legs up into that 90-degree position. The spine should not move at this point at all if we've done things properly. If we haven't, you'll get a bit of sharp pain or a bit of discomfort, and do it properly the second time round. Then we move the legs out as far or as little as we want to. And again, if you fail to control your core here because you're not strong enough or because you lapse in concentration, your spine will move, as we mentioned a moment ago. And as that happens, you are likely to re-aggravate the pain again. This is all a learning process. You do it once, you reflect on that process. Too many people do these sorts of exercises mindlessly, just go along, do a bunch of them, don't listen to their body and feel what's happening, go, oh, it hurt afterwards, I guess that exercise isn't for me. And that is a big mistake. You can see as I'm doing this exercise, it's thoughtful, it's slow, it's controlled. And if you do find you get caught anywhere, stop, reflect, where did you go wrong, re-engage your core, do a little bit less range, and repeat the process until you can do it right. Finally, we're getting to the third exercise. We've learned to master control in the lying down horizontal position without the stress of extra weight, without the stress of balance and gravity acting on our body. Now comes to the third exercise, and this is a reverse lunge. You might be asking, why are we doing a reverse lunge instead of a forward lunge? Well, the main reason being a forward lunge would involve us stepping forwards, and that's going to create a stop, and that's going to create an impact. And we don't need to worry about unnecessary impacts at this stage in the game. Sure, if you want to add those on later on for whatever reason, fine, but we want to do things sensibly. So we're doing a reverse lunge. Here, why are we doing this? So we're building on the principles that we mentioned earlier on. We're building on the ability to stabilize the spine. prevent erroneous movement as the spine and the body is pulled in different directions, and as those core muscles are working with different other muscles to generate force and movement. This is reminiscent of the things we're doing on a daily basis. Note, no point in this video have I mentioned doing sit-ups, because those are so impractical and unapplicable to the activities we're going to be doing on a daily basis, let alone all the disadvantages. And we've got plenty of videos on our YouTube channel that talk about those. Back to lunges. As you're going through the lunge, and again, videos coming up very shortly, as we're going through the lunge, the requirement is that your spine is held steady as we go down through that lunge, and as your hips will inevitably want to buckle to the side. If you allow them to buckle to the side because there's either weakness, lack of control in the core, or maybe in the glutes there's lack of control here now, then that is going to change the holes on the side of the spine. It's going to move the joints, and that's where we can get reaggravation and flare-ups. So again, we use the same principles that we discussed in the last part. We want to do these exercises slowly, steadily, and feel what is happening. But really, we're getting this core to work with our postural muscles because we're upright. Maybe we're even using some resistance at this point as well. Resistance bands, kettlebells, dumbbells, whatever it may be, to add load and demand on the body. And we're also getting these big, powerful glutes and leg muscles to work to stabilize the knee, the ankle further down as well, and put it all together into a seamless movement that doesn't irritate the lower back. And that lack of irritation comes from holding everything together and not allowing erroneous movement in the lumbar spine. So as you can see on the screen here, we can go as low or as shallow as we want. And I'd urge you to start off with the shallower that we go with these lunges, the easier it's going to be. You're going to find that a shallow lunge allows you to control movement at the knee, control movement at the ankle, and prevent for any wobbling there. As you start to go deeper, you may find that your knees wobble, and that's an indication that your legs aren't going to be strong enough to work and support this movement, and then work in tandem with the core to stabilize your spine. So we've got a weak point here, which slowly over time you're going to work out because you're going to make improvement in that particular area by doing these repeatedly over time. We're also keeping the core nice and strong throughout this entirety of the exercise. And if we're using resistance here, depending on what we're using as a resistance tool, we might well need to really work on keeping our posture nice and tall as we're doing this. Note, it is perfectly reasonable and acceptable for you to pivot the body forward slightly at the level of the hip and hinge forwards as we're doing this movement, and that's going to help your glutes engage. But please mark my words, your lumbar spine should not be rounding as we are pivoting forwards. As I mentioned, we are pivoting at the level of the hip and not rounding our lower back during this particular movement. This is something that you can really work on, and I personally find it's very good to do this with bare feet so you can see the action that's happening at your feet and the control that is coming up from the ground through feedback and balance. And that is all being computed and used with your brain and your core and your other muscles to orientate you and keep you nice and balanced. Many of the life's activities are going to be unilateral. They're on one side or the other. We're bending down to pick something up, we're going up the stairs, we're doing all sorts of other things. This exercise really helps us apply something in a safe environment, the lunge, to real world activities and build that strength in that safe environment so we can do those real world activities more effectively. So let's wrap it all up. First and foremost, when you've injured your back, we've got that lumbar spine curve, that towel exercise that we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing 3 to 5 minutes, but maybe even starting at just 20 seconds to begin with. And that is putting the spine in the best possible position while it's trying to heal and when it's just been injured. That's vitally important. Then we build on to start to learn to engage our core in the safest possible manner using exercises like the dead bug that we showed, whereby we control and stabilize our spine in spite of gentle movements pulling us in different directions from the limbs. We then took it in the third step to upright, with and without resistance in more complex movements that involve lunging, and again our body's ability to stabilize the spine whilst working in tandem with the larger muscles of the lower body, the postural muscles of the upper body, and having to negotiate a degree of balance and knee stability, ankle stability, etc. And really applying our rehab to the real world and the way in which our body has to interact in that real world. As I mentioned earlier, you can learn more about the Back in Shape program above my head or down in the description, where they'll have more information about the full program and how it can help you with all the support that's there as well. And you can become part of our awesome community that we have of people just like you fixing their back pain from home and sharing that with our great community with live workouts and our Facebook group, etc. Remember, this is just a small part of the exercise that we've covered, but the principles remain the same. Do stick at them, take your time and build consistently over that time, progressing from one stage to the next and enhancing the resistance along the way. That is how you'll get the best possible results and really get your back in shape. If you did find this video helpful, consider giving it a thumbs up. Let us know in the comments if you've tried any of these before, or if you've been struggling and you've got any questions, let us know in the comments. And remember, you can always subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with the latest videos just like this, so you know when the next one's coming out. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.